So hello everybody and welcome back to the next video tutorial. In this video tutorial I'm going to show you how I am going to set up the lights in this studio setup. And it builds upon a previous video tutorial in which I was talking about the so-called post-process volume. And I went through all the settings you should check if you want to use an Unreal Studio setup and also would like to use ray tracing with the DX12 technology. So in this particular case, I would like to focus on the lights, especially what specific lights I have been using and what settings I prefer to use for my studio setups to keep that super quick and simple. So in this particular case, again, if you're in the viewport, click G, and when you click G, you can actually see what specific lights I have been setting up. You can click on an icon in the viewport, and then you see also here in the so-called world outliner that this particular light is a rectangular light, and yeah, in this case it's just rectangular light number 4. So when you scroll down under the details tab, you can also see the first basic features and options here. First of all, you can see location, rotation, and scale. I usually, in this particular case, never change the scale since it's a dynamic change. I keep this relative to 1, and I change usually the scale and the size of my light when you look at this here in the source width, okay, and in the source height, as you can see here. And when you change that, you can also see that in those specific feature settings you also have the so-called attenuation radius, and this is, so to speak, the falloff. But let's have a closer look at the most important settings and values here. First of all, this is the location. That means XYZ, where is your light placed? And as you can see, if I move the Y position, then it's changing. If I use my X position, it's changing. And if I use my Z position, it is changing, right? So you can also type in the numbers here, and if you type in 50, then you can see this is the Z position. It's moving down to the floor. If you type in 100, it's moving up, and so on. So I think this is straightforward and explains it very easy. Rotation also, if you scale the light, if you change the rotation of the light, you can see it in the viewport, how it rotates, and you have also X, Y, and Z. So all kind of options here to play around. Like I said, I don't touch the scaling options because if it is dynamic in the engine, and I don't want to touch that. And the next very important option is, as I am working with lights in the studio setup and for design visualization and animation purpose, if I know that I'm not going to animate that specific light, and if I keep those light sources static, I keep them on static position. Okay, that's very, very important for now, and I will go into more details about the difference to stationary and movable lights. But for this particular case, to get started and to get the needle also moving, this is very, very important that we understand this. So look at this. I have lots of rectangular lights here. There's maybe then also a target light in the background. But mainly, as you can see, this is it. This is how it looks like. And the intensity is here controlled with the luminous intensity in candelas, which is a candlelight intensity, so to speak. But, you know, whatever, important is that you understand that you can have different values, and you need to balance and adjust those values accordingly. Whatever you're working in, it has, of course, a different strength in the power of and the output power of the specific light, especially when you work with physical-based cameras. That's very, very important to understand. But to show you here now the light intensity and the light setup, and what I'm usually looking at is basically the first settings. First of all, of course, the light intensity plays a role. So as you saw before in the post-process volume and the manual settings, I was setting up the camera that we control manually our camera settings, and I keep it on manual so I really can see the strengths of a specific light source, because if you change this to automatic exposure, it might fool you because the light intensity is then not really visible to that specific exposure settings of your camera. That's why I keep it manual and static on the camera as well. So as you can see, if I blow up the intensity of the candela here to 160, that means I would have the power of 160 candles. In this particular case, this is how it would affect my current settings of my camera sensitivity, the ISO and whatever you have been setting up, right? But this is very, very important. That's the basic. And as you can see, I have instant results, which is so cool. This is why I love the Unreal Engine so much, and the real-time ray tracing, because I can see as an artist, as a lighting artist, as a, cinematographer, I mean, I can see instant results. That's just beautiful. This is awesome. I mean, I haven't seen this in any other ray tracer in such a great quality as I can see here. And that's why I'm so stoked and super happy. So let's keep going. Light color. So you click on it. And of course, I can change my light color. And it's also awesome because I have instant results, right? And I can definitely see if I go more into purple, more into blue, how is it affecting my lighting setup? So this is pretty cool. Then I think the most important, or one of the very, very important features is the so-called attenuation radius. That's the fall off. And let's have a look at this. If you change here the radius, look at this, then you can see how far that specific light in the fall off is actually influencing your scene. And for that specific reason, I created here also, if you check here the wireframe modus, basically a wall with a plane to see, like, to show you this effect, right? So if you only focus on this particular light, and let's make this green, that you can really see what it does, then you can see if I have just the power of 1, but I change my fall off here, the attenuation radius, you can clearly see how I shrink it. And what is also super cool is that you have even a visual representation with the radius, with this spherical wireframe circle here that shows you in XYZ exactly how far this light is influencing the radius and the fall off on your shot, right? And this is, I mean, super awesome that you have this option here. And it, of course, also gives you the power to control how far this light should actually, travel. And the fall off is very, very important, of course, like in photography, digital photography, for a cinematographer or a director of photography, because you would like, or you want to control lights as much as possible. You want to control the intensity, the fall off, and everything. And as you can see, this is just beautiful. So let's keep this in mind. Very, very important that we understand those features here. So intensity, static light, attenuation radius, which is the fall off. And then, of course, I can also change the source width and the source height. Absolutely clear to see here, whatever you would like to do. And then another great feature in here is, of course, the so-called barn door angle and the barn door length. Okay, so look at this and look at this impact. Okay, so a barn door is nothing else that, as you can see here, on a real light source, you have, like, you might know it from old school film sets, where you put a barn door on it that controls the light and the light travel. And you can see it actually on this icon here. When I zoom in, it's pretty cool because it's in this icon you can actually see 1, 2, 3, 4 barn doors, and that controls, so to speak, the light and their fall off and the bouncing or the direction. And what's really cool, if I bring maybe the attenuation up, the fall off, and then I change the source width and the height, you can really see what it does. So if I change the barn door angle, then you can see I compress the light into a specific direction, right? And if you change the barn door length, then you also can see I can control where does it actually, from the length, start, how long do I pick it, and what specific influence do I get to my specific shot. It's very nice to see here in real time, if you push this light, for instance, down to the floor, what it really does. And I think that's also super cool because, for instance, here in this example, I can say if my barn door is like 100 units long, then you can clearly see that before that 100 units, my light is not even kicking in because my barn doors are blocking it. Okay, so that's basically how you have to visualize it. This barn door, and you can change it, the barn door, and it's blocking, of course, here the source of the light or the light source. And then you can give it a specific angle. And if you push this to 0, you can see that is kind of like straight. And if you push it up to 90, then you have the opposite direction and it starts to illuminate the scene directly out from this light source. So I think that's very easy to understand and to visualize, especially because you can see it in real time, the retracing, and also how it influences your shot. So this is one thing. Then the next thing is also you have a source texture, which is pretty cool. I don't have anything prepared here, but I will show this in another tutorial. The source texture gives you the ability to load different texture maps, and those texture maps can be used like as a softbox, what you know usually from studio photography, and it's really cool. I will show this in more depth in another video tutorial, what you can do with it to mimic some specific lights and light sources for the studio setup. So this is one thing. Then, of course, you can use the temperature. That means I can, identify on top of it if I want to have it warmer or cooler. So this would be a warmer color. This would be a cooler color. And of course, you can also see here if you change colors, what it really does here in the temperature. But at the end, it's just color. You see here temperature 1700, much warmer. If I push it to 12,000, it's much cooler, even if my source light color was light blue. Okay, so of course it should affect my world. So this is turned on because otherwise, it's not affecting my world. It's kind of like turn it off, or is it turn it off, or is it turned off on? And one important thing here is also indirect light intensity. I usually leave this value at 1, especially when we are working with retracing. Visible in the render, it's literally the same. Yes, if I want to use the specific light in my render, then of course I would like to see it. Very important. And because you know that I am going to use for this particular case, of course, ray tracing, it's very important that, so first of all, I don't care so much about light mass in this particular case or at all, because I retrace everything, I don't bake anything. And but what is very important, if you would also use stationary lights, you can see here, use area shadows for stationary light, okay? So if you would switch this to stationary light, I recommend to turn it on because you would like to use area shadows, as you hopefully have seen in my previous tutorial, because area shadows gives you the best quality of shadows and the best results, so to speak. Then what is very important, here the distance field shadows, I will talk about this later in a more detailed video, but what is super important is that you want to control also the samples per pixel. So because we are retracing reflections, GI, AO, and even translucency, which is refraction, you might get some noise in your animation, but also in a still. And in order to control the noise quality, you can crank up here the samples. For each individual light, you can control. But look at this. If I crank this up from one sample, look at the frames per second here, and let's say crank this up to 128, of course, or 512. My frames per second are dropping dramatically because this one particular light source, I gave it so many samples per pixel for retracing. This is kind of like a killer, right? But the quality would go up very, very high, and you will get no noise in your renders. But for demonstration purpose, I always start with one sample per pixel for retracing because it keeps the light it keeps everything super simple. It keeps it very fast. I can make quick changes. You can see here my frames per second is an average like 36, and it makes my life super, super easy. And that's about it for the beginning. So keep in mind, if you are using a rectangular light, this is what I usually do in a setup. I pick a color, I adjust my settings. Also keep in mind when the color goes darker, the intensity is changing. If it goes brighter, it has an impact to the intensity. And we went through all the other options here, and I think it's just like a dream came true because I can make lighting changes, instantly, and I see the results. And of course, the size of the light matters, and also the position of the light matters in combination with the intensity, because you can also blow out something here, and you want to make sure that all those light values are balanced, that you reach the maximum values in an 8-bit picture later on. And I mean, I will follow up with lots and lots of things, but overall, understanding studio lighting, studio setups, it's very important that you also understand the basics of lighting in general, intensity, values, what a key light is, what a rim light is, how you can create different moods with specific lights. That's very important. And in combination, it's also great to understand how to use a physical based camera. But all that being said, I go step by step through all those options and settings with you. This is basically a tutorial that gives you all the raw information to kickstart a nice studio setup, and then you can play with it. Of course, you can download this video sorry, not the video tutorial, but this level and the project file on my webpage. And as you see it already here in the background. What is it? First of all, if you click G again in the editor, then all those icons will be removed. But if you go to fedibull.com, then you can download all those levels and project files, and you can hop in and run your own tests step by step. You can import geometry and see all the settings and see how it really works in real time. If you like that video and if you liked it, please help me out. Click on the thumbs up, leave your comments. If you have any questions, just hop over to my website, fedibull.com, ask me all the questions you have, or leave a question below this video. I'm trying to help you and answer whatever I can do to help you. But again, best would be if you hop over to my website, sign up also for my newsletter and my 3D resources. You can download all those assets for free, and you can start working with me together in this wonderful project here. That being said, thank you so much for watching this video tutorial, and I'll see you then in my next video tutorial. And we are going to cover more and more things, how to set up and create wonderful studio setups. That being said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon in my next video and on my website at fedibull.com. And happy retracing, and see you later. Take care.